Big thank you to SimpliSafe for sponsoring today's video. I'll tell you about them later on. This week I am back in Seattle visiting Ann of all trades, my bestie. We had the pleasure of Eric Curtis, Ian Curtis on YouTube, visiting us, and we decided to tackle Ann's deck as our project. Let me give you guys a good look at the befores here, because I found it incredible just to see how much of a difference 2 days worth of work made to this entire area. Of course, there were 3 of us, and none of us are slow steppers. All right, let's go ahead and get into the process. The first step was demo, of course. We grabbed a few pry bars and started pulling deck boards up one by one. Luckily, as we got more of the substrate exposed, we were able to see that it was still in pretty good shape. With that looking good and not needing replacing or leveling, it shaved off not only a bunch of work for us, but also time. Ann would grab the boards we ripped up and toss them out of the way from the job site into a pile that could later be loaded up with her tractor and disposed of. After the deck boards were ripped up, we started denailing the joists. Instead of spending a bunch of time with a hammer trying to rip them out, we just went through with a few sawzalls and a demo blade to cut them off flush. With all of the joists cleared, next was to unload the new material that we will be laying down. Ann went with treated 5/4 boards. In the south, our treated lumber is green, but in the north, it's this cedarish color, which I think is much nicer looking. Before getting into decking though, we needed to raise the level up of this bump out. Especially with Ann's pizza oven here, she found the step down to be very inconvenient. To raise it up, Eric first set a string line, which has a line level on it, on both ends to mark the height of the existing joist. This way we could cut to length some 2x8s and sister them onto the existing joist, but at a raised up level. We started with the furthest joist, and while Eric raised it up, I would read the line level. Once it was level, Ann would set a strong holding Bessie clamp to hold it in location while we moved to the other end of the board and repeated the process. Next, we repeated that same process on the nearest joist that needed to be raised up. Once things were set, we could go through with a nailer and attach it. With these 2 boards done, Eric laid a straight board across the 2, and we set the remaining boards by just butting them up to the underside of this board. And that's it for that portion of the build, so next we started decking it. We started at the existing porch and worked our way out. Since these boards will shrink some, we didn't leave any gaps between boards, but instead butted them right up next to the previous laid board. When we got to the pizza oven posts, we would just scribe a line and cut around them so that they could slip in, but look pretty seamless. It's worth noting we are using ring shank nails. If you aren't familiar, ring shank nails have a ribbing design on them to prevent the nail from being able to back out over time, as regular nails will do when the board expands and contracts. The nailing is really just a 2-person job, so while Eric and I got into a good routine with laying the boards and passing the nailer, Ann was keeping busy on picking up trash and setting the spacer in between the house and the newest board. The end of the board that's opposite of the house can be cut straight after all of the boards are laid down. However, getting a straight line cut up next to the house wouldn't be that easy. So this line is where we made sure they lined up straight and nice by placing the same spacer in between the siding and the board before nailing it down. By this point, we were getting kind of late in the day, and I cannot believe how long the sun stays out in Seattle, or when it is out. But we decided to do the demo work of the next portion of the build. See, the deck goes into a small section that runs perpendicular to the rest of the deck, but Ann wanted this change to run continuously into her shop, which is that doorway you see there. So before calling it a night and grabbing an adult beverage, we demoed. This part wasn't so simple as prying up because it was set with screws, but most of them were embedded in the boards and we couldn't access them. So bring back out the demo blade and the sawzall to speed this process along. Man, that isn't bad for a day's worth of work, huh? Real quick, I want to tell you about this video's sponsor, which is SimpliSafe. If you've been following along, you'll know that I use SimpliSafe for my shop security. It is an incredibly efficient, reliable home or shop security that will make sure your property is safe. I can relax knowing my shop, and therefore my tools, are professionally monitored 24/7. And if anything happens, they'll make sure that the police are called. The whole system is not only easy to install yourself, but also very intuitive to use. It has thoughtful features such as sensors that let me know when I've left a door open. And the system is equipped for worst case scenarios, meaning it still works if the Wi-Fi or power go out. Over the years, I've acquired a lot of expensive equipment, and protecting that space and the tools inside is a top priority. It's so reassuring to me, even whenever I'm away from the shop, that I can use the application on my phone to check in and make sure things are secured. And don't think it has to cost an arm and a leg to get this quality of protection. SimpliSafe has very fair pricing. I pay roughly 50 cents a day with no contract. So if you would like to take your security to the next level for your home or your shop, then you can check out simplisafe.com/April. Now let's get back to that project. Anne decided she would rather have a step into her shop rather than a ramp. So Eric started ripping the remains of that out while I started cutting around obstacles to place the new deck joists. You can see this area doesn't have any since the boards were running the other direction. Eric was careful when demoing because he had the clever idea to reuse the good boards rather than purchasing new ones. We sistered these joists onto the existing joists from the deck, pausing to have a little jam session when the opportunity struck. For the new step up, we placed a header with some concrete screws into Anne's shop doorway, then set some 4x4 posts. We were actually setting the outside floor joist to the post at the same time. We first attached one side to the header located under the doorway, then placed a level on top of it to get it nice and straight before attaching it to the post. Once that's set, the post can be cut to its final height, which is flush to the top of the 2x6s.
Oh, that's a clean cut.
By the way, while Eric and I were tackling this step, Anne was building out a firewood storage rack on her awesome outdoor pizza oven so that we could enjoy some homemade pizza after all of our hard work. She not only made a shelf, but also chopped up a bunch of wood. Back on the step, we added in a center joist to give it more support, and then we just started laying down decking once again. As I mentioned earlier, we lined up the deck boards on the house side, but let the free end run wild. So now we needed to snap a chalk line, then rip these boards to be the exact same length. While Eric and I tackled this, Anne went through and dropped a second nail into each board. We were worried that we would run out of nails, so when we were laying down the boards originally, we only put in one per joist. Then we can clean up the job site, put back all of the tools, and give her a good old shining up. Woo! What a big difference this made. I love tackling projects where there is such a drastic before and after appearance. And if I'm being honest, I love knocking out so much work in such little time frame. Now Anne not only has a much better looking porch, but also a better functioning one as it's all on one level. We celebrated by having a few awesome Seattle friends over and Anne treating us to some of her out of this world homemade pizza. Be sure to follow Ian Curtis on YouTube. He's brand new to making videos, but he is a very experienced woodworker. He's going to be putting out a video showing you how we made this very quick style in one day farmhouse table. And then Anne has plenty of plans to still improve this area even further. If you're not following either one of these, then be sure to check them out. There's links for you down in the description. That's it for this one. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. You have to do my wave.
Oh, we should all do it at the same time.
Yeah. We should not.
We should 100% do it at the same time.
All right, 1, 2, 3.